Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today we're going over my red Jiren list updated for set 15. If you guys watched yesterday's video, the top 5 rogue recommendations for December 2021, I let you guys know that my favorite red deck of this format is Jiren. I do think red is the weakest color, but when I say red's the weakest color, I don't mean in any way that it's unplayable. It can still do fine in the current format. It's just that it's not the same as like blue, yellow, black, or even green with like Cell Surge or Starter Bully, in my opinion at least. But I still do think red is strong. It's playable. It's been the top dog for a long time before it kind of got neutered on one of the more recent ban lists, so I think it's pretty much okay that red's in the state that it is. But yeah, anyways, my favorite red deck of this format is Jiren. I've been enjoying playing it, and since I mentioned that yesterday it's my favorite red deck, some of you guys asked for a profile, and I thought it was kind of just a cool segue to bring you guys my updated list for set 15. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so never miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways to do so down in the description. But if you guys want to buy any cards you see in today's video, or any trading card game cards for that matter, use my link in the description to TCG Player. It will really help out a lot. Anyways, we will get into it. We have the Jiren leader here, which you guys have been seeing for quite some time now if you've been playing for the last 2 sets. So what I really want to say about Jiren is just that I mentioned it a bit in yesterday's video, but because your leader doesn't actually gain benefits from attacking on the unawakened side, you don't always have to attack with him in certain scenarios. Just because you're an aggro deck doesn't mean you have to swing with your unawakened leader all the time. One really good strategy for Jiren is actually stalling your opponent's life out, especially if they cannot inherently self-awaken via their own leader skill. And then just like establishing your board of like however many attacks you can get, 8 attacks, 10 attacks, 12 attacks, whatever it is, and then going for as much damage as possible when they're at like 6 life, let's just say, and you kind of 6-0 them. That's a really good way to go about it. One matchup that I know this is really good in is Golden Frieza, for example. Like I mentioned yesterday, when me, Danny, and Marcus were testing Golden Frieza for Nationals, we were testing against Jiren because we recognized it as one of the more popular red decks of the format. And when Jiren would kind of stall us out at 6 and we had to awaken ourselves, it made our game plan much more awkward, rather than when they attacked us without quite being ready to go all the way in, and they would let us just awaken for free basically, and we were able to use that time to stabilize and get our things online, and then not really have to worry about their massive board. Because once we're awakened as yellow, we really do have a lot more control of the board than when we're not awakened. Same thing for Icarus. Make them awaken themselves over the course of 4 turns if you think it could be advantageous for yourself. Like, you get them down to that 5th life that they've been taking turn after turn after turn, and you have like 7 attackers ready to go in at that point. So I hope I really just drove that point home of when it could be very advantageous to like stall your opponent and then go in with the kill shot once your board's ready. That was actually a big tactic in the early days of Dragon Ball Super. Like, I'm talking the set 2, set 3 days. So if you guys are newer players, you might not have really experienced that type of phenomena, because, you know, it hasn't been a super huge thing recently because most decks can self-awaken. But if a deck is slow to self-awaken, this can be a very good strategy. But enough about that. Let's go into the main board here. So we're playing 8 copies of the different 1-drops, the baby Jirens, of course. You pretty much have to play it because your leader looks at top 7 for a 1-drop. One really cool thing about Jiren the Avenger that I really like is that with his other activate main, where you pitch a card to search Jiren from your deck, you can actually pitch Koitsukai, which we're not maining Koitsukai in this list, but you could main it if you think if it's relevant. It's definitely good against a lot of matchups, but I have it in my sideboard just because I think it's better in the side. But yeah, really cool synergy is discarding Koitsukai. And the reason is, Koitsukai is actually very awkward to use in non-black or non-mill decks, because oftentimes, like, if you don't combo him defensively, you have to combo him offensively to put him in the drop to then use his effect. But you want to use Koitsukai to basically prevent your opponent's floodgate battle card negates, like Robotic Riposte, Boo, Unadulterated Malice, Tobo Righteous Aid, those kinds of things, right? But if you have to attack to put Koitsukai in the drop, they have the opportunity to use their floodgate before you use Koitsukai. So what's really nice is that Jiren the Avenger allows you to pitch it without ever having to attack, so you do get to put it in the drop pretty much seamlessly without allowing them the opportunity to use one of their floodgates, which is really nice. And then we have 4 copies of Jiren Devastating Might, 4 copies of Jiren Surge of Strength, and 3 copies of Jiren Unseen Potential. So yeah, again, all pretty standard stuff. The deck is very archetype based. There are a few things that come down to tech, which again we will talk about. I think what I've done a lot here though is talk about like the gameplay of the deck, which I think is pretty helpful for you guys. But anyways, yeah, so 4 Jiren Devastating Might, gotta play it. This is what makes like your leader and other effects in the deck, playing cards in rest mode, not so bad of a thing. Because like, yeah, it's kind of like a summoning sickness, but when you put a 15k body out in rest mode turn 1, it's going to be pretty hard for your opponent to deal with it. Only 3 copies of Jiren Unseen Potential. This is pretty nice because the deck is relatively budget, and it only needs 3 TPs as opposed to 4. And last I checked, this guy's only at like $10, and that was around time of national, so he might be even cheaper now, which is pretty nice. But honestly, Jiren Unseen Potential is not all that great in the deck because sometimes the searches can be awkward. It also sucks that he has to put a card at the bottom of the deck after you do search. So yeah, he's like not the best, but you just want more evolve targets, so you play him at 3. 3 copies of Jiren Zenith of Power. This is one of the big attractions to the deck. It's obviously a super crazy big boss monster. It kills almost any battle card in the game on play. And the really cool thing is that it doesn't have true dual attack. It has an activate main that kind of acts like dual attack. But the nice thing about it being an activate main is that you can dodge like Crusher Ball types of effects, things that let it enter in rest mode. That's really, really nice. 4 copies of Topo, Force of Obliteration. I've seen lots of builds that don't play with a Unison, and while I can see the argument for it, I personally like the deck with the Unison, because like when you don't see the Unison, it can be very annoying, and seeing the Unison late can also be annoying. But when you see the Unison early and you're able to build it up with markers, you're just getting that much more free board value every single turn, and it's really, really strong. So while the Unison is not a great attacker and he can be vulnerable in the early turns, once you get him like if he survives the turn you play him and then the next turn, he's probably gonna have too many markers for your opponent to actually remove. So at that point, the engine, I think, is paid for itself. So I think it's really good in that regard. 4 copies of Kunchi Warrior View 11. I've tried this. I've tried the 1-drop draft box Jiren just for more Jiren names, but I do like the fact that Kunchi lets you draw a card. You don't always have like the biggest hand in this deck. And one thing I will mention too is this is a 50 card flat deck. We're not playing anymore because we want to be maximum consistency, and this isn't like an Icarus or a Soul Striker where you really turbo through your deck. So every draw is valuable, and making sure that every card is the best card you could possibly see is very important. So again, that's why I like Kunchi. There's also another Kunchi that comes in and minus 4K's a battle card, which can be nice for sniping opposing 1-drops. But this guy giving barrier is pretty nice against like Secret ID and stuff like that. So this is really a flexible option. You could even play the draft box here, and I don't think that's bad at all if you wanted to go that route. 3 copies of Jiren Pride of U11. This is a card that is severely broken in this deck. It's very, very good, but like sometimes I want to play 2 because seeing too many copies early can be annoying. But again, like I mentioned before, we don't have like the craziest turbo draw through our deck with this particular deck in general, so I want to see this card most of the time, so that's why I'm playing it at 3. If this was more like an Icarus deck where we just had like crazy inherent draw power, I'd probably just play 2, but I do want to make sure I see it, which is why we're playing 3. 3 copies of Yamcha. I kind of want to play 4, but again, I don't want to go over 50. There are maybe some flex spots, and I'm definitely going to say side the 4th here, but yeah, I do want to play 4. I just can't quite fit it, and 3 is a good number as well. Like, there are matchups where Yamcha's not the best, and that's where you don't really want to see excess copies of it, but there are matchups where Yamcha really excels and you want 4 copies, so that's where you get a good justification for like siding the 4th and just maining 3. 1 copy of King Piccolo New Ruler, which is all we can play, so of course we're going to play it. Just a free aggro tool, and another reason why you want to have your Topo as early as possible. 2 copies of Further Instruction Champa. This could maybe be a flex spot. I could see going down to 1 Champa, but the nice thing about playing 2 is we are a red deck, so we can always charge it if it's dead in our hand, and this just allows us to see it more often if we need it to kill our opponent, right? Especially because our leader can get very, very big on the Awaken side. Champa is a very synergistic card of the deck, so that's really, really good. 3, Testing the Opposition. So this is the only negate we're playing main board, and it's super, super good. There's a lot of times where you will be at 5 life, especially if your opponent's stalling you out. And then having Testing the Opposition can protect your Unison, protect your battle cards, help you maintain your board state while getting you Awaken, and then spawning the blocker is obviously great because it can stop another attack. So my opinion, this is just the most synergistic negate you can play with the deck. I would definitely recommend sideboarding Violent Raise, though. That card is just good in so many different matchups that you definitely want to have it in your 65. 1 copy of SS4 Bardock Fighting Against Fate. This could be this could be Secret ID. I go with Bardock because I feel like we have decent board control, whether we have to attack into battle cards with our dual attackers or just, you know, kill things with Zenith Power. Those are both fine. But yeah, I mean, we are an aggro deck, so I want to have the most game-ending power possible. Only 1 copy because I don't want to mess with our drop area too much because we do have the Jiren Pride of U11. So that feels a little anti-synergistic, but if you time it correctly, the 1 of Overwhelm can pretty much win you the game, so that's why we're still playing it. 2 Rolly Crown. I've been back and forth on 2 or 3. Like, I'm definitely sideboarding 1 more, if not 2 more in this deck. But again, the space is a little bit tight, so 2 has been fine for me. Yeah, but I can totally see the argument for 3 copies, of course. 4 Raditz and Youth. So in my original build, when this deck first came out, I was playing the Coquette super combo. And the reason for that was Jiren Unseen Potential can search it out, and that is a very nice synergy. But the draw power of Raditz just helps you filter through the deck. Like, again, if this deck was more like an Icarus where we could just naturally see a lot of cards, I'd probably go Coquette, just because the cycling wouldn't be as important. But even though we can't search Raditz when we do have it, it just helps us see better cards. So that's the main reason for it. And then finally, guys, the one thing that makes this deck pretty much non-budget is the Pan Time Patrol Maiden. So I've done many deck profiles in the last few formats where I've talked about the fact that your SCR can be a lot of different choices. Like most profiles, it was definitely Space Time Unraveler. Like even my original Jiren, I think, was Space Time Unraveler, although it might have been Gohanks. But either way, those are 2 great options for this deck. You could also play Heroine's Lineage, for example. That's another good option. But nowadays, with aggro decks and set 15 being a thing, I think Pan Time Patrol Maiden is the technical best in slot SCR, because you just spam out a board super easily. So Pan can always be a 0-cost battle card. Not only is it incredible for saving you defensively against other battle card reliant decks, but you can just free play it as a 40k swinger, like basically on command, again, because you have the ability to spam out a board so well. So that's why I think it is technically the best in slot. Again, you can play Space Time Unraveler, you can play Heroine's Lineage, you can play Gohanks. But if you're going to ask me what I think the best SCR for the deck is, it's definitely going to be Pan. Most budget, though, of course, Heroine's Lineage. So if you were to play Heroine's Lineage in this deck, I think it'd be relatively budget friendly, especially if you changed Fighting Against Fate for Secret ID. That'd be a better budget change. King Piccolo, I think the cheapest copy is about $10. Again, could be even cheaper because we are now in the off season. So besides that, I think this deck is pretty budget friendly with those types of changes. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think about the build? What would you change? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.